Hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And as of filming this intro, most likely the second video of two that I am uploading or posting back to back. I just did a release and review video for Trinity Stamps August 2023 release, and I'll walk through the whole release, etc. I will have that linked at the end of this video if you missed it. And I mentioned that because I used some of the new products on my cards, and I even went through my pattern paper stash and used some of my pattern paper. So pat on the back to me. For those not aware, I hoard pattern paper. I used to use it all the time, and now I don't know. I like to hoard it. It's pretty and it gives me ideas. But I used some of it, and I used action wobbles again. And made it move, and some glitter embossing powder and all the fun things. These were really fun to make, so keep watching and I will show you guys how I made these cards. I just fell in love with the little Dainty ghost wafer die from this Trinity Stamps release, and it just made me think of like doilies and florals and all the things, and I was like, there we go. That's the card. I want to make these little ghosties look like they're wearing like bed sheets. You know? So I went through my pattern paper and I pulled out, this is some Honeybee Stamps Simply Spring patterned paper. And yeah, this floral is gorgeous. It's actually very similar to the bedding I already have. Mine just has more it's more cool toned, but love it. So I trimmed out, enough for two, because like always, if I'm gonna be doing the work, why not make more than one? And I die cut the little Dainty ghost from the pattern paper, as well as from white cardstock, and then some black cardstock scraps for the little eyes and mouth. Now with pattern paper, it depends on the pattern, all things, but ones like this that are very it's a busy pattern, there's a lot going on, you lose a lot of the detail. And this wafer die also impresses kind of the fold marks along the bottom, which you can see in the image of the die, as well as on just plain cardstock. But on this pattern paper, you pretty much couldn't see that. So I wanted to enhance it so that you see that detail. So I just took some Copic markers, and this is kind of the same method I use when I'm doing paper piecing with pattern paper to give the depth and dimension. So I went over it with what was the darkest one I used? W6, W4, and W2 Copic markers, and you could see there it makes a huge difference compared to the one with no coloring whatsoever. So that kind of enhanced all the little folds, and then and you can see it there on the white one, that are all pressed in and make it look all cute. And the white one, I just staggered it a little bit lower and adhered them together. And then I added the little black pieces for the eyes and the mouth. And so I've got this little ghosty with, in his little bed sheet, in his little comforter. And then the little bits on the bottom. Then for the sentiment, I'm using the Halloween Sentiments die set. And this works also with if you're, have a bunch of alphabet die cuts and you're, lining them up for a, custom sentiment, or just any sort of die cut sentiment that the letters are separate and not connected. I ran the two different dies through my die cut machine, which is white cardstock, the AmyR and the FABooLOUS. And while these would still be fairly easy to adhere on the outline, I was like, oh, press and seal for the win. So leaving everything in place, I just took a piece of press and seal and pressed it into there, and then set it aside because I did two pieces, obviously. So I die cut that from white cardstock. And with the second time I die cut it, the pieces didn't want to stay in place. You see, they're going to start coming out as I'm lifting the die up. But all I do is take my little piercing tool and I just press them back. It's like, nope, you're staying where you belong. Because this is just going to make my life easier to adhere everything onto the outline. So I get them lined up inside the what will be the scrap, remove the wafer dies out of place, and then I take that second little piece of press and seal and For this type of a technique, it needs to be press and seal. There's nothing else that's really going to work. You can try a little bit of washi tape. That's actually what we used to use back in the day before the whole press and seal thing. But press and seal is just easier. And I do always link to it because Simon Says Stamp does carry it because it is hard to get internationally. I use it to seal my paste. There's all kinds of hacks for press and seal, all the fun things. Anyway, so now I have those words and the extras pressed in. The outlines I die cut from black cardstock. And then to make this even easier, I pop out all the little center pieces that I don't need. And I just use my little die pick for this. It doesn't take very long. You could leave them in place, but I would rather remove them before adding any adhesive. It's just one less thing I'll have to deal with. So I removed all those little pieces. Everything else just still stays, clung to the press and seal. And I also remove the scrap. So I'm left with just the letters. And I've sped this up in editing, but I just took my time making sure like everything just stayed in place. It's all positioned where it's supposed to be. And then I can add my adhesive. Now, I could have skipped this step and run that cardstock through like my little Xyron, sticker maker, that sort of a thing first. And I had adhesive on the back. That works great too, but I have no problem using my craft tacky glue. I've got it in this little Gina K precision bottle. It's good to go. And I add just a thin layer on the back of the die cut. And then the magic of it all is because press and seal is translucent. I can flip it over, see where I'm going, press these into place. And then I give it about a minute after I've pressed everything down, and then I gently remove the press and seal. I don't want to leave it on there until everything's completely dry, just in case any glue oozes out a bit. I don't want to like glue the press and seal to it. You know what I mean? So, like I said, I just give it a little bit of time. I let it sit for literally less than a minute. It depends on your glue and all the things. But press it down real good, let it sit for a little tiny bit, and then I just gently peel it off, make sure everything's still in place, and then that's it. And I need to remember this technique. I haven't done it in forever, but I generally avoid using sentiment dies if all the letters are separate, because I don't like fiddling with that kind of stuff. But then it was like, oh, duh, I know how to get around it. And then it looks great and it's simple. So I did it on the second piece. And then I took more pattern paper. This one's from the Honeybee Pinstripes and Polka Dot Spring, which matches that other pack. Like they're similar tones, and these just have literal pinstripes and polka dots. So very, very simple patterns. And these would work for the ghosties as well. You would see more detail on them. But my heart was set on those floral ones because I just thought they were adorable. So I trimmed down these little panels and I'm putting them in my Misty, and I'm using that little heart spider web Caught My Heart stamp set, which is just so cute. So I lined that up over the pattern paper. I used my anti-static powder tool. I lined up this big web stamp over that, and then I inked up the stamp with white pigment ink. This is going to be very subtle, but that's what I was going for. You could use just white embossing powder too. That would look cute. I was originally going to do that, but then I'm like, wait a minute. I have my like iridescent sparkle embossing powder. So that'll make it a little more subtle instead of stark white. Plus it adds a little bit of, shimmer, sparkly goodness. So that's exactly what I did. I stamped it in the white pigment ink, covered it in the sparkle embossing powder, melted that with my heat tool. And again, it's going to be much more subtle instead of stark white, but that's perfect because I don't want to take away from the ghost. The ghost is the star of the show. So melted that onto the pattern paper, and then I just repeat the process on the second piece. And I'll tilt this in the light here so you can kind of see it a little bit better because it's just lovely. And then I roughed up the edges because I've been on that kick for a while now. There is a tool, and I do have a link to it. It's an old Tim Holtz thread cutter paper distresser tool. That thing has existed for like the last couple decades. I thought I used to have it. I can't find it. I was hunting through all my stuff. This is why we hoard things, like, because they come in handy 10 years later. I couldn't find it because I was going to show it on camera for you guys, but I'll have a link to it. It's a great little tool. Instead of like using the edge of your scissors, I've also shown like you can just use your fingernail to rough up cardstock too, whatever floats your boat. I actually prefer using my scissors. You just have to be a little more careful on pattern paper or just thinner papers or cardstocks because it's, they're a little more flimsy when you're trying to rough up those edges. But I just roughed them up. It just gives a little extra like texture and dimension. So I did that to the pattern paper piece as well as the mat, which is some cotton candy cardstock from Simon Says Stamp. And then my card bases are going to be top folding A2 white note cards. And I'm going to put these into my Misty and I'm going to stamp that web. Again, I've cleaned off the ink. I've centered it onto the inside of the card. And I'm going to stamp this in the palest light pink I've got, which is Ballet Slipper from Concord and 9th. So I inked up the stamp with that and stamped that onto the inside of these cards. And I ended up deciding not to add any other sentiments, anything, because like the outside's like, you're fabulous. And then the inside, I love like the little heart in the center of this web. I think it's so cute. I'm going to add one of the little die cut spiders to finish it off, and that's it for the inside. So the little die cut spiders are part of the little coordinating die set for that Caught My Heart stamp set. So I die cut the little spider from just some scraps of black cardstock, and 2 of them I adhered to the inside of the cards, and then the other 2 it die cuts the little like eye pieces, so I popped those out and I just cut tiny little rectangles of white cardstock, quick and easy. So just trim those down and I'm going to adhere them right behind the little spiders so it makes their eyes stand out a little bit more. And then that way I can adhere them onto the card fronts, like on top of the pattern paper, and the eyes will be white. So, although I need to go through my stash, googly eyes. Those would have looked really cute. So many ideas after the fact. That's the other thing I need to go on the hunt for. I've moved things around and I'm like, I know I have like every size imaginable. I just need to find them. Anyway. That's another idea. Googly eyes would look adorable on those. So I adhered the card fronts to the card bases, just like so. And then the FABooLOUS sentiment I stuck on the bottom. And then the your I stuck on like kind of the upper left corner there. And then the little spiders I'm going to adhere into place. And then action wobbles. So I've already done a couple of the Halloween videos in my series. I used mini action wobbles. The mini ones are still currently sold out. I'm waiting to get the notification that they're back and I'll let everyone know. I'm going to show the minis here. They're about 1/4 of the size of the originals. And that's great. They're great for smaller things. But for these, I wanted the original size. You can see much bigger, much more substantial. And thankfully, I was able to find mine. These were the last 2 I think I have. I don't have any others, so I actually need to order more. These are in stock as of me doing this voiceover. So I'll have a link to them. And action wobbles, all you do is peel off the backing, stick one side to the item you want to bounce around, the other side to the card. People have asked, like, which side to use. I honestly don't think it matters. Yeah, I think I've done either way over all these years of using these things. And then the great thing about them is that they press flat, which I'll show at the end of the video. And yeah, it pops them up and they bounce around, and it's just the easiest way to create an interactive little card with like the least amount of effort, which is top notch in my book. So I popped those little guys into place on their action wobbles and then made sure to just press it down really, really well so everything's adhered, played with it for a bit because how can one resist? And then I added some more subtle bling. These are the Trinity stamps. I had the gloss white and gloss black little embellishments and just kind of sprinkled those throughout both of these card fronts. I started with one. Once I was happy with everything, like where everything was placed, etc., then I just copy it on the second card. So just adhere them all into place with dabs of craft tacky glue. And yeah, like I said, I went kind of like subtle with the embellishments because again, the ghost is the star of the show. The only thing I would do differently is if I find my little stash of little googly eyes, I'll stick them to those spiders because that's just a little extra, something, and why not? So once those are adhered into place, these cards are complete, and you can see like they just bounce around without even touching them, really. Especially the big ones, because they're larger and they've got everything popped up, so they just like move on their own. And yeah, they press flat, so it makes it really easy to mail these. And then when you pull it out of the envelope, it kind of pops up a bit, and then they dance around like super, super cute. So like I said in the intro, I will have a link to that release and review at the end of this video. I will, of course, also have a link to my Halloween 2023 playlist that I will continue to add to as I get videos uploaded. So I'll have a link to that at the end as well for you guys to check out if you're interested. And then below the video, I'll have a link to my blog post. And in the blog post, there's picture links, there's all the photos, all the things. That will be linked directly below the video, along with the supply list and links to everything I used. So you can check that out below if you were interested. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping and commenting and letting the robot overlords know you guys like what you see. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.